Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Maria Kishishyan. I am from Russia, for those who don't know. I have just graduated from the St.Gallen MBA program. And previously, I worked for Bayer, a global company in the field of pharmaceuticals and chemicals, for all the 5 years of my professional career. And if someone just 1 year ago approached me and told me that I would even consider switching from the corporate environment, going into the entrepreneurial scene, I would certainly think that that guy is just crazy. However, thanks to the local MBA career services, I was very lucky to get a mentor, Anat Bargera, who actually completely changed my perception, who helped me realize that my entrepreneurial dream shouldn't remain just a dream, and helped me to dare to realize my desire to become an entrepreneur. This is why I also decided that more people should benefit from such a source of inspiration, and I'm hoping that tonight we could all learn tons about entrepreneurship and from the experience of our wonderful panelists, and we could all be inspired to become people who dare. I'm very pleased to introduce our panelists for this evening. So, Dr. Yulia Valentina-Jacquier, over there, the right. Yulia is originally from Russia. She is a founder of JBJ Consult, a company that provides advisory services in the field of impact investing. Julia holds an MBA and PhD degrees in finance and has 2 boys. Dr. Sarah Urliman, born and raised in Sweden. She is the co-founder and CEO of a chain of dental clinics around Switzerland with approximately 30 branches. And she studied dentistry in Sweden and then oral surgery in Geneva. Sarah has 5 children, and I personally think that it deserves a round of applause. Ms. Anat Bargera, originally from Israel, the CEO and the chairman of WiB Africa.
Just the chairman, no CEO.
No, just the chairman. Of the company WiB Africa. The company provides high-speed internet to hundreds of thousands of people in sub-Saharan Africa. Anat is a serial entrepreneur, graduate of INSEAD, and has 3 kids. And last but not least, Ms. Esther de Boer, born in the Netherlands. She's the managing partner of WiB Management Ltd, a consultancy and executive coaching boutique focused on strategy for the C-level executives. Esther holds master's degree from ETH Zurich and is a mother to a little daughter. Esther is an entrepreneur in the field of the fashion design. Yep. So, thank you all very much for making it all the way to St. Gallen. And that's how we're going to do it. We are going to allocate around 40 to 50 minutes to the panel discussion, and then 15 to 20 minutes to the Q&A from the audience. We have questions, but we're mainly interested to get the insight from each one of you on each of those topics. And I'd like to start with the beginning of your entrepreneurial career. So could you share how you decided to become an entrepreneur, or what pushed you in this direction?
We're not going to start always with me, right?
I mean, yeah, so, not necessarily. That's true. But
do you want me to start? Well, I always thought about entrepreneurs, and I actually confirmed this as someone who really has a dream to do something and then goes and fulfills it. For me, I frankly never wanted to be an entrepreneur. So my background is actually in corporates. I started with McKinsey and then worked with ABB and American International Group, managing the private equity business, lately for American International Group. And for me, entrepreneurship actually started without leaving AIG. just by the virtue of not being content with just doing a purely commercial work and wanting to do something which had more meaning. And as a result of it, I started developing an idea of a social investment or impact investment fund. And for me, that was the true first entrepreneurial activity, because you need to do through the idea, business plan, research. You needed to go and spend 2 years banging in all the doors trying to get support and the funding. But I think that's for me the start of the entrepreneurial activities. And then later on, out of it came already the consultancy business. But again, I have to admit, it wasn't by design. I was writing a book, and at that time, the first client, Credit Suisse, came and asked to help them in a particular area. Then another client came, and then it's kind of unfolded. So in a way, I believe in a serendipity. So when something leads you somewhere, it starts kind of having a life of its own. So for me, it wasn't a conscious journey, but a very enjoyable one.
Yeah, more or less alike. I did not have the aim of calling myself an entrepreneur, but since I saw, I was working in the hospital of Geneva, and I thought, my God, they are very unfriendly to the patients. Then I took a job in a dental office working as a surgeon, and I thought, my God, they are unflexible. They over lunchtime they close down, and after 5 it's closed. It would be so easy to be a bit friendly and actually have the clinics open when the patients actually can come. So I tried to talk to my boss at the time and told him, listen, you could improve, you could make it bigger, you could. And he said, yeah, I'm happy as it is. I want to go wakeboarding in the afternoon. I don't have time. And then I said, okay, and then I'll do it on my own. And since my husband had just finished HSG, and he worked very hard for a consulting firm, an American one, where FaceTime is very important. We didn't see each other so much, so we said, okay, let's join and we'll do it together, and that's how it started.
Okay, so first I have to do a disclaimer to what Maria said, that because of me she became an entrepreneur. So I was telling Maria, most of the businesses, the startups, they fail. Statistically, most of them fail. When they fail, it's very difficult to get a job in the corporate world because you have nothing really to show. And the third thing, it's a lot of fun. So probably this is why. But again, me too, like my 2 colleagues, I was in UBS, they give you 6 months of maternity leave. So I had the first child, then I had the second child. I had an MBA from INSEAD. It wasn't fun, I have to say, not at all. And my husband left Novartis, and he started building up his telecom companies. He's a true entrepreneur, if you can call this way. He always has ideas. And over time, he realized, here, there's a lawyer there. My first degree is law. I can get stuff from her, and I don't need to pay. So went on, and then I really realized there are some other things to do there. I started doing the fundraising, and I got more and more involved in the companies. This is how it happened to me.
My initial moment was in an internship, and I was maybe 20 years old, and I had some bosses, and I thought, well, I don't think that I'm going to grow old with bosses. And that was the initial idea of becoming an entrepreneur, out of the wish not to have bosses. And my first company I started when I was 25 years old, and I closed it down 9 months later because I didn't start it right. I did earn a little bit of money, but not enough, and it didn't look like something that could grow in the future. And then at the age of maybe 30 or 29 or so, I told one of my, I was in the corporate world, I told one of my, not clients, Lieferanten, suppliers, thank you, that I was thinking about becoming independent. And he said, that's a good idea, I believe in you. If you do that, if I believe in your business plan, I give you 50,000 Swiss francs and a free office for a year. But then I came back with an idea to him, and he said, that's not enough. And then 2 years later, there was the idea what to do. That was coming much later than the wish to become an entrepreneur. And when I had the idea what I wanted to do, which I'm still doing now more or less, I didn't need the 50,000 Swiss francs in the free office for a year. I just forgot about him, actually. It came to my mind a little bit later that I could have funded more money there, but I forgot about him, and I started up my business.
So basically, some of you already mentioned that you've got those MBA degrees. Did this MBA education, because some of us are current students, some are alumni, did the MBA play any role in your reinforcement of your decision that you can do it? You know, that it probably will lower the probability of a failure of your company? Yeah?
For me, it definitely played an important role over the life. I mean, later on, and I can say it gives you the confidence that you know stuff. So I think people without MBA tend to think that, wow, the guys with the MBA, they learn so much, they understand finance and accounting, they exaggerate. Once you have the MBA, you just feel a little bit more comfortable about stuff that you don't know about, but you heard 1 or 2 classes, that's it. I'm very serious about it, and I mean it. And the other thing is great network. It's in Sept, great network. Our investment banker now in our 5th company who helped us raise funds, exercise exits in Sept, and whenever I go, it's in Sept. So that's what my MBA gave me, and it moved me from this law degree into something more. Yeah, it helped me daring.
Yeah, I didn't do what you call a classical MBA. I call my wrong choices in my company as my MBA education. And I actually made a little short mathematics, and at least 2.5 million I've spent on my MBA. And I must say, you really learn from the errors.
All right. Anything to add?
Well, I don't have a classical MBA either, but coming from the ETH, I didn't know much about business, and I did 1 year of general education about business and management and law and everything on another level, and that's very helpful. Yes, confidence.
Okay. You there?
Well, for me, I think I've done my MBA very early on. I didn't have, experience. I started working while doing my MBA, so that was my first. So for me, it wasn't the entrepreneurship came much later. But what I see teaching MBA students now, I think the huge benefit, apart from confidence and knowledge, is actually getting outside of your working environment and really getting outside of this tunnel vision. We just in a rat race. We don't see what's happening, that there are opportunities outside. At least I didn't when you work. And in a way, sometimes, whether it's an MBA, whether it's losing your job, it can be the very valuable kick in the butt that could actually make you think, wait a minute, what is it that I actually would like to do, versus just following this path that is not necessarily yours.
Thank you. So the next question I have is a bit personal, so please do not feel obliged to answer it, but I'm still going to ask, I'm curious. What is the role of your husbands in your entrepreneurial career path, and would you have enough of courage to go into this different life if you were single?
First, the second question, yes, I would, because you may not make it dependent on someone else when you start a business, but of course he was helpful. He funded the finance to start up my business. I had none at that moment, and he supported the idea that I'm going to be working 70, 80, 90 hours a week as a standard, and that the sharing of household, etc., would be different, or maybe more chaos at home because no one is there to take care of, and all that stuff. Yes, in the daily life it's very important to have this kind of support.
So saying that it's more important from the point of view of having this emotional support of being on the same line, right?
Yes, and he is an entrepreneur as well, so he knows about entrepreneurship and what it takes, and therefore he knew what I was going into at that moment already.
Ladies, I know that you're deeply involved with your husbands and your businesses.
Well, in my case, it's very obvious. My husband was the first entrepreneur in the family, and he dragged me into it. I don't know if I was not married to him, how it would have developed. I think it's irrelevant. Maybe I would have turned into an entrepreneur later on in my life. Maybe I would have had other partners. So in the beginning, it was the other way around. I was the bread bringer because I was going to the bank. He could have opened his businesses. So I don't think it's a formula that matters. I don't think that working couples are the only way to succeed. I'm not sure it's the best solution. That whatever ways people choose, that's what it is. I do agree that if one wants to have a family and kids, which I personally, for me, it's extremely important, the partner has to be such that you're on the same wavelength. But even if you're a big manager in a big corporate, you need a husband that supports you as a woman. So, and vice versa.
Yeah, so in my case, my business partner is also my husband, and all our different businesses that we have in healthcare, we're all in on them together. I'm sure I would have done it something different also without him, but he looks great in a suit, I can tell you. And he's really king of Excel, and when you want to fundraise and you need to go to the banks, it looks a lot better if you have this super slick guy along.
I read a book recently, and then there was an author who was thanking all the people for providing this and that, and then she thanked her husband and said, and thank you to this, which made everything else possible. So for me, there was that. I think that, and it's not related to entrepreneurship. I think it's related to career, to something. If I had to choose, I would choose family, irrespective of all the success, irrespective of the joy of, doing and, advising the governments and families and things like that. I think having a partner, a true partner as a husband, is just invaluable in any situation. And I think for me, he played a huge role in moral support, in being there and being your fan. He also was the one who, when the AIG got bankrupt and I was looking for another job and I was not happy with what I could see, I was dreading every interview. He said, don't rush. Take your time, think what you want to do. He made it possible for me to dare, not necessarily entrepreneurship, but just to take a break and to start, developing this book and whatever project, which then led me to entrepreneurship. But I think a lot of, my successes are linked to him being there for me. So.
Thank you. So, all of you, majorly except maybe from Esther, are not originally from Switzerland and did not spend your youth in Switzerland. So how does it feel to be like a young woman and start a company in a foreign country like Switzerland? If you could maybe compare it to other entrepreneurial environments.
Well, it's definitely challenging. I'm still surprised almost every day. Even one of the bankers giving us money since very long time surprised me greatly. Only a few years ago, during a lunch, he actually looked at me and said, "Oh, Monsieur Lehmann, are you helping your husband a bit out in the office?" And then I really wondered if I was in the wrong field. But on the other hand, it doesn't really damage your business. It maybe damages a bit your own self-esteem and your need to be in focus, but it's definitely different in Switzerland than it is in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, there is a story that I remember, and I remembered many years in the beginning, from one of the guys that was my role model. It's an Israeli who left to the US, started a business, a startup, made it big, sold it, started another one. And he told me on the first startup, because he was an Israeli in the Silicon Valley, he had to have a white Anglo-Saxon man running the company. And he could have been only the CTO, although all of the ideas were his, he was running them. But he had to have this front man. And after they've done the first success, sold the company for tens of millions. I think it was an IPO, yeah. He was able to walk out in the Silicon Valley and raise money. And this was story number one. Story number two, I was privileged enough to be invited to give a TED talk in the Silicon Valley 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So I'm flying in and I'm thinking, oh, this is the great country. And I knew there were going to be a lot of other women talkers. And wow, I'm going to this great place where women can raise money, where people listen to it. Same story came out, and they came with statistics, how in the Silicon Valley, the people who give you money are Harvard graduates, white, MBAs. And so the women don't get that money, it's the men who get this money. So the same story in another suit. And I agree with Sarah, Switzerland is not different than that. And having said that, we had like 5 telecom businesses. We didn't raise money only in Switzerland, far away from that. We raised it worldwide. And so there were people who gave money because of my husband. There were people who gave money because of me. So you just have to know where your niche is and what are people looking for. But there is, I think we cannot deny it, there is a certain amount of this world who still see a man and they think, you know, they would give him more credit because he's a man. This is what it is.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I would say, I don't necessarily deal or boil in the Swiss environment, so I work very internationally, so I think that helps. But also what helped me is that, you know, I came from the financial background and I sat on a number of boards where I would be the only woman. And that is the huge, you know, experience, because there you get it all. You make a comment and then there's another board member who would attribute it to someone else who is male. You make a particular suggestion and people will say, well, let's not be emotional. You know, you say, look, we need to exchange management. We need to take drastic things. Oh, let's not come to the conclusion. So it's, I would say it's a quintessence of this thing. And once you know how to deal through that, and once you know that you can trust yourself, that what you think, and sometimes it's a gut feeling, right? It's worth doing it. Then I think entrepreneurship, for me, maybe it's even an easier way than succeeding in the corporate, because there it's either a service where you're good at, or it's a product that has a demand. So there I think it's really, you need to be good. It's not the brand, it's not those corporate ones. So I sometimes feel for women, be it entrepreneurial activities within their corporate businesses, and that's what, when I work with younger women, I always say, start something, risk something, you will get up much higher than just continuing doing great work in your own business, because you would not be necessarily noticed. But if you start entrepreneurial activities, you will get up. And I, based on my experience, where everybody in my company told me, it will never happen. You will never raise your fund. AIG is not something which is, you know, remotely interested in social investing. It's the wrong company. And because you are believing in it, it doesn't matter whether you would lose your job or not. And once people feel that you're not hanging on this job, they start to value you much more. And you get much more because you're passionate on this idea. So I would say for women, in a foreign countries, entrepreneurial, intrapreneurial activities, it's the way forward.
I was just thinking, sorry, that none of us, as far as I understood, is Swiss, right?
I'm not Swiss either.
You're not Swiss either. So I was thinking, it didn't just happen that the four of us here are not Swiss. And in a way, if you're foreign in such an environment, you adhere less to the rules, to the unwritten rules, because you're less sensitive. So I think there is somehow an advantage in it.
But I have to add a positive note. I mean, at the same time, when no one thinks that you're the boss, you're always a bit underestimated and so on. It also has great advantage. I mean, I remember when we got this prize of the Entrepreneur of the Year, there was loads of guys in black suit and me in a red dress in the middle. And of course, then you get noticed. So it has certain advantages.
And definitely in '99, when there was the bubble and everybody was going to raise funds and you had investors, they always remembered me. And I always had the red dress.
So a good tip is always
No,
Buy a red dress.
All right, we've already touched a bit upon the challenges, and if we try, we've got some gentlemen also in the audience, so if we try to deviate a bit from the challenges that women particularly face in entrepreneurship, maybe you could just name a couple of major challenges in general in the entrepreneurship area as opposed to corporate environment that you faced, you came across throughout your career.
Well, in entrepreneurship, you're responsible for just everything. Whenever a call comes, can I talk to CFO, the one who buys the material, whatever, it's always me. And you're responsible for whatever happens in this company, whatever crisis comes to you, whatever clients want something, everything. It's such a broad, diverse responsibility, but that's also interesting. And in the corporate world, it was too narrow for me. I was always thinking of that and that as well, but there were other responsibles who said, just leave my piece of garden alone, don't dig into my garden, and that's what helping me being successful in entrepreneurship is that I am responsible for all the gardens around, and in the corporate world it was just this little piece of land that I had to plant my flowers on, and I was an entrepreneur, maybe a little bit too daring. I had to leave then. Well, I decided myself, but I had to leave because I was just caring too much for other things.
So
Business.
we talk about level of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Anything else?
So the biggest difference to me is that women get pregnant actually. And being pregnant, meaning, and I was it many times, meaning that for 9 months you are not really yourself, you're a bit more tired, you're a bit more maybe moody, but you're running the company. So that's for me is the biggest problem, difference. And then once the baby is there, my experience at least is that you as a mother, you feel more responsibility towards the baby than maybe the person that was not pregnant. So that's for me the biggest difference, male and female.
For me, it's the risk of failure, and maybe because of the nature of what we're doing, we go into countries, we get licenses, we deploy the networks, cost a lot of money, and we need to get subscribers. So we are an operator, telecom operator. So we need to convince investors. We take our money, investors' money, boom, a lot of money goes into. It's not the ground, it's the base stations, but you never know whether this is going to be successful or not.
In Africa, yeah.
Even in Europe. In Africa, this is our first one, but we've got 4 before. In Europe, I had sleepless nights. So it's the risk of failure for yourself, your money, investors' money, employees losing their job. It's not nice to fail. Nobody wants to. And so I think over my life, I learned to separate a little bit, to have less sleepless nights, because it's not going to help. So you need to do what you need to do in the right way and try to be as successful as you can for your benefit and other people's benefit, but try to somehow separate your personal happiness and not worry about it.
For me, the most challenging is actually the time. I've managed private equity funds, and I thought I had a very challenging career and traveling. But when you're independent or when you're an entrepreneur, it's day and night. And apart from worry, it's just constant thinking about your business. You never stop. And you have to really force yourself, and I'm not very good at it. And that's my husband tells me all the time, you're not there. So even when you're at the dinner, you're still thinking about your business. And I think that is more challenging, and that is more challenging for women and for mothers than being in a corporate job, however high responsibility it is. There's no switching off.
So then how is solving these challenges? What are these 2-3 qualities that an entrepreneur has to have to be successful, to lower the probability of failure? Maybe each one of you has a secret, recipe, maybe not, but I'm sure that you've got something that, you have formed in your head as a quality that if this guy doesn't have it, I'm not putting my money into it.
My definition is a little bit different. It's not to avoid the failures. You cannot avoid failures.
Mm-hmm.
Failures happen. Look, statistically, most of the companies that start fail. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be able to pick up yourself and continue to do the next thing. So that's about it. You don't get destroyed. You maybe analyze your mistakes. You maybe decide what I'll do different next time. But you continue to do it if you want to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. Failure, you have to embrace failure as being part of a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happens, a colleague of mine told me, be elegant. Do it in an elegant way. So keep up your values and how you want to deal with human beings in a situation of failure. And when you can't change it anymore and the business goes down, then talk early enough, take the decisions early enough so that no one gets hurt more than needed.
Mm-hmm.
They will be hurt, but not more than needed.
Well, sorry.
Well, I just want to stay with the issue of failure, because I think for entrepreneurship that's probably the core, and particularly in Switzerland a lot of things don't happen because people are afraid of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my background primarily is really investing. So, and I remember when I invested in a company and we've lost 20 million. So we pretty much lost the investment. And I thought that I would never recover. So this failure, I thought, look, doesn't matter how many good investments you made, this failure gonna really make you sink, never ever you're gonna be recovered. And in hindsight, now when I look at it, it happened, 2001 probably, it's 13 years now. And apart from the huge lessons that you get from failure, and in investing, which is my business, it's the only way you learn, it actually helped me enormously. Because now people actually, when I get hired, I tell them, look how I've lost the money and what I've learned and things like that. So in a way, the failure really, unless it's something where you really do something unethical and whatever, it will stick to you. We do have to change the attitude towards failure. And I agree that you just have to fail. I mean, elegantly, I wish I knew how, but at least in a way where you can still respect yourself. So you do things properly.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis the people, vis-a-vis the partners. So I think that's very important. But failure actually can be very, very good. And that's where I think Americans are very good at entrepreneurship, where failure is a plus.
I think there's also a difference. What I'm saying is very superficial and based on cliches, but when I look at men and women, I believe on a whole there are different attributes, on a whole, very superficial, doesn't relate to everybody. So this is like my personal superficial assumptions or perceptions. But I think men are much more easy with failures. So I lost the money. It's the investors' money. They should have thought before. Women take it to bed with them and they feel so guilty about it. And how could I do this,
Well, first of all, I want to say hugely inspirational and interesting panel discussion. I think it's also well done to you, Maria. One question: if you are at the start of setting up your business, what is more important, people or idea? I mean, people you work with, the people you take on board as partners, as business partners, or is it the idea?
People.
People.
I think it's both. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
Yeah, no, I disagree. With that, a good idea is worth nothing if you don't have the people to realize it. If you have a very good team, you can have a mediocre idea and do very good business with it.
Or change the idea.
Or change the idea or whatever. People is more important than the idea.
And when people come to me to invest, and like everybody say they're fantastic, and they also think they're fantastic. But I'm looking, what is the business model? Is it disruptive? Is it global? Does it have huge potential?
And to get the right people, you also have to have a very motivating idea. I mean, to get the best kind of people that are now maybe stuck in super jobs, to make their leave their McKinsey job, to come and work with you or for you, you have to sell your idea. So I think it has to be almost brilliant.
And also, if it was a fantastic idea, it's an indication that the people are not bad. Otherwise, they wouldn't come with that.
Yeah, maybe as a follow-up question, I mean, how do you know if your idea works, right? I mean, maybe with people, there's a track record. You may have references, what they're worth, but with the idea, it's just on paper, it's just in the head. It's very difficult to validate, to assess the viability of your idea. So you're saying you also have to have a very, very good idea, but how do you know whether you have a good idea? I mean, you never know, right? You never know.
You talk to people,
Everyone
from
says
the
something
industry.
different.
You talk to people from the industry, you try to make contacts, to go to talk to people from the industry. You try to talk to professional investors.
And talking in general doesn't even have to be to the greatest minds, but if it even sounds good to, maybe not my grandma, but my mummy, that all of a sudden she can go to the doctor at 9 o'clock where she actually has a headache, and she says, oh, that's great, I cannot do that now. Then you go, okay, maybe in the normal population I will find some resonance.
My experience of investing is that people are absolutely primary, and that ideas, will need to be tweaked, will need to be strengthened. There might be failures, things like that. If you don't have the team, the management team, which is strong, which can work with each other, it's much likelier to fail than if the idea, that if the idea is not that good, because then if the people are brilliant,
Thanks a lot.
My question is, how much of the risks that you took were risks that you can, affordable risks? I mean, none of you, of course, crazy. And so, and the fear to fail, I mean, what were you willing to lose?
Look, we
And then
might not be
if,
crazy, but we're married, right?
No. You have understood us wrong, or at least I was totally nuts. I signed for 1 million Swiss francs where I had Zippo. So my exit ticket was if it didn't work out, I would go and become a diving instructor in a very, very different country than Switzerland.
And I had sometimes different perception than my partner or my husband about how much risk we want to take. So this is a discussion area. It can happen with every partner that you do in your business. How much personal risk you want to take. And as a generalization, I think women have the tendency to risk less because they think about the house and the kids and this and that.
I have a question that's more to do again with funding, but I have an idea that I think would be really great that would require more social entrepreneurship type activities and funding from funds that would, like, I don't know, Global Fund, Acumen Fund, these kinds of social entrepreneurship funding organisations. How do I go about approaching those? And it's not the same as going to a bank and saying, I need the cash because what I'm going to deliver here is going to be something that's going to create tons of money. It's actually going to be something that would save lives. So it requires investment and it would become potentially a sustainable business over time. But the question is, how do you get people to give you the cash and who do you go to for that?
You go to Julia.
It's exactly the same. You develop your business. Every business has a business model, so you have to develop how is it that you're going to get to this profitability. And then you have the social mission and how it actually fits into all these things. And then you go and knock on 200,000 doors. And frankly, sometimes what I hear from social entrepreneurs, and that's horrible to say, that they sometimes get more traction from traditional angels who like the idea than from so-called social investors. And then what has been your experience in fundraising?
My experience, I'm going to say some very unnice things. My experience is that some of these social very easy to be a social entrepreneur, because if I didn't manage to make money, at least I did something nice for the world. You know, and this is why I sort of am very skeptical about all of these social entrepreneurship businesses. For example, in Africa, I really believe in this thing. You want to help Africa? Come do business here. There were like tons, trillions of money that went to Africa, didn't do it good. On the contrary, people got used to the position. Those NGOs come and they fix our life. And the NGOs are sort of racing on who's got a bigger car. Our experience was totally different. We did a company, our fifth one, to make money, to make even more money than we made before. And we brought great investors like us. And then we found out that it has a social impact. Why? Because broadband, and this is statistically proven, improves the economical development of developing markets. And the countries that do it right, look at Singapore, they come up with their GDP. So
If you were selling cigarettes, you would have not found this.
I probably not. So you have not selectively, so that I wouldn't find somebody. So go to UNICEF. You know, if your aim is to help the world, go to UNICEF. If your aim is to make money, you know, come to me as an investor.
I would strongly disagree with that.
Okay.
Because I think that nowadays, more and more, enlightened business leadership is about combining the positive impact with a strong, sustainable business model. Making money is good, and it's true that a lot of social entrepreneurs are dreamers. They're not savvy businessmen, but you have to have both. You have to be multilingual. You have to be committed to mission. It has to be ingrained in your business, and you have to be a good business person. Because if your business falls, zero impact. So it is a double burden in a way to be a good social entrepreneur, or I would rather say socially motivated business, right? So where you say we need to pursue, and nowadays, you know, I'm in discussions now with a lot of business leaders, family-owned businesses, the Mahindras of the world, the Unilevers of the world, where they say, look, sustainability, the positive social impact, it has to be part of our business model, because it actually de-risks our business model, it helps us grow. So people start thinking about it more and more, and I think that is where the future will be.
Why does it risk their business model?
Because in many cases, people realize that social inequalities, the climate change, it affects their markets, either it's a supply chain or the markets where they want to sell. So if there is a social unrest in the market, your business is not sustainable from that perspective.
But I think there is a certain amount of people that they know I cannot produce here a good yield. So I will say I'm also doing a social contribution, it's like a discount. If I'm unsuccessful, I'll say, okay, at least I did something.
There are, absolutely. And I think, it is more difficult to find good businessmen among social entrepreneurs, unfortunately. But I think it will change because more and more serial entrepreneurs move into social activities.
I have a bit a different angle, because you're speaking all about big social things happening very far away from us. And being an entrepreneur in Switzerland, I have great social impact on my environment. Hiring 500 people in Switzerland gives 500 people and their families and so on a good and stable job, a nice perspective for the future, and that's social impact where you live. So I think you don't have to go so far, you don't have to aim so high. Whatever you do, you're going to be good and activate the whole system where you are, which makes people socially happier wherever you are.
Thank you. So we've got time for 2 more questions. Andrea?
Yeah, I have one question, which is, so none of you is Swiss. Still, you started your business in Switzerland and you're still there. How come? And the second one is, maybe we already spoke about the Swiss risk aversion. What is like the biggest tip you would give someone that maybe grew up in Switzerland or is Swiss and has a totally Swiss mindset? What's a part of risk aversion with Swiss?
It's for a minority of the audience. It's still valid.
If I may jump into your second one, I was yesterday or the day before at this 10 top startups that Seca organized, and for the 10 top on 7 I was going wow, and I wish I invested in the first. So things change in Switzerland. It's not like it used to be. It became a cult, it became acceptable. I get all the time business plans from Swiss. I guess they're Swiss, I don't check them, but they sound pretty Swiss. They speak Switzerland, should be. So I think it's changing. Personally, I just happened to come here because we both went to Sept, my husband and myself, and we needed jobs. And Switzerland gave both of us jobs, otherwise we would go. So it just happened.
For me, I'm a Swiss by choice. I love Switzerland. There is nowhere else I'd rather be than this country. The great advantage is Switzerland is relatively much behind in most things. So, so much things. You can look in other countries and just bring it here, and voila, you have your fantastic business idea and a great success. It's easy.
I would just say, and I remember that when I was, starting my fund, at IG, and I remember when, I just had my second child there, and there was a guy who asked me, so Julia, all this, glamorous job, but who is raising your kids now? So I would just say, there is this typical Swiss kind of thing, and particularly I think also for women who've been raised in the environment, you also have much more guilt and I cannot do it, it shouldn't be done. So I would say the biggest probably tip would be surround yourself with people who would support you rather than pull you down. So I think that's the most important maybe for me, and they can be Swiss or non-Swiss.
Well, I grew up here in Switzerland, and I can absolutely sign what you just said. I also have lots of people around me who ask those kind of stupid questions.
Yes.
You're coming from Sweden. Are Swedish worse than Swiss? No, but everybody works 35, 40 hours a week, and the children are in daycare. All of them are in daycare. And here in Switzerland, it seems to be totally impossible that a normal human being can grow out of a daycare institution. Yeah, it's hard to get distance from that kind of mentality here in Switzerland. And
The problem is that as a woman, you would already have all these doubts inside your head. You already have this guilt that I'm not always, and that am I good enough, and whatever. So if people externally are pushing it further and further, it becomes more difficult.
So get together with your MBA colleagues. But the good advice I got when I had children was always hang out with the mothers who do only motherhood, because they know where is the best courses and how to shop. So get all the tips from them.
There's also a hub, in Switzerland, Zurich, and it's getting more and more. And there you'll find young, motivated startup entrepreneurs where you can just, exchange ideas or just get support, moral support.
Thank you so much. Last question? Yeah. We got on a topic which I would like to discuss very openly: entrepreneurship and non-entrepreneurial in Switzerland. So you have 5 kids. I would like really to hear a little bit more about how you get through all those obstacles you have as a mom, and because you have the childcare system which is improving about 6, 7 years, is growing. There are a lot of childcares in Switzerland. We have this new philosophy growing around that all the moms should be getting back to work and things like that. But 6 years back, it was not there. And how was it? How have you been dealing with it? Because you say to get together with moms, but Swiss moms, which are staying home with their kids, and you decide to leave your kids at the childcare and go ahead because you think you still have something more to do than stay there. They are not supporting you that yet. They are not that so lovely as you are describing right now. So.
No, they know more, that's all.
Yeah. How have you, this is a direct question, how have you been dealing with it? Because
First of all, I have mainly male friends. No, it's a very good question. And it's of course a very, very it gives a lot more freedom. In Sweden, it's preset. Everyone goes to kindergarten when you're 1.5 years. You have to stay home for 1.5 years, not allowed to work for that, and so on. Here, there is anyway no organized kindergarten, so you have to make up your own mind, and how you're going to do it. But if you're an entrepreneur, getting childcare is the least difficult thing you're going to organize in your life. So you just have to. I have a business at home with all the things working there and all the people helping me and so on, and the business at work. So you just have to be conscious about constantly having a bit of a bad conscience, but I think that's a feminine thing. We have that no matter what we do, so just live with it. And think out of the box, don't do like the others. And really, I got my last child, who knows if it's the last, but the youngest one was born last summer, and this time I had really planned to take a time out and so on, but already directly after the birth, my husband came in with this file and said, it would be nice if you could just look at this until tomorrow. So after 8 days, me and Noemi, my baby girl, we were back in the office, and Noemi, I mean, babies are nice. They don't do so much, they don't need so much space, and they actually animate a bit the office landscape. So you just have to think a bit out of the box and do that what suits you at the time. If you have too much bad conscience for your kids, take a couple of days off, spend them with the kids, or make your days shorter, whatever to suit your peace of mind. But of course, the easiest, and that's I took the easy route. My first company I founded before I had kids, and I got my first kid when the company was already working slightly, and that makes it easier.
I understand, I have 2 kids, 23 and 20, which I raised while working in UBA 6 years. And now I have a 10 years old, with totally different life. And so, but when I go back a little bit, the movie, how was I then? What was the problem was not how to solve it. Where I solved it easy. I understood nannies, opera girls are not funny because I was in every month. And they stole and this and that. It was terrible. So we took a lady, we paid her probably most of my salary went there. But she was with us 7 years and I could travel and I felt state of peace, state of mind. So the solution, I think, is not the problem. The problem is how you listen to the people and the remarks. I can spend here the whole evening, remarks, and you have mother-in-law, you have this and that. And I think the real solution, you stick to like-minded women and you feel, you need to feel good about it. Take out the guilt, it's not going to help anybody. Just feel good about what you're doing, and that's it. It's the non-peace of mind that is more troubling than solving it practically.
I want to add something. We had a friend of ours in our office today, and I told him about the panel tonight. And then he said, I know 3 kinds of mothers. He has no children. I know 3 kinds of mothers. One type of mother is a professional, be it entrepreneur or manager herself, and has kids, and has staff at home, and is well organized. One kind of mothers stay at home, have kids, and take care of the whole household. And one kind of mother, he's from a rich background, stays at home, has staff at home who takes care of the kids in the household, and is no professional. And guess who is the most happy in life and less organized? That are the first type of mothers with a profession and with a family and some staff at home to avoid the chaos. And the least happiest are those who have staff at home and no profession. And that's all what you wanted to say about
No,
it.
but it's just about the network we are talking about. Talking about this network, supporting, and you are in an organization which I hope is also give those girls to get more together, because sometimes the hierarchy, when we got in the entrepreneurship, you don't have the friends, you have against your own mindset who already have been through things like that, but they just forgot about it, and they don't even say, oh, okay, so this is how it could be managed, or some thing I think I can find much better in the man world, which is not that much in the women's, because when we talk about with kids, without kids, start there. If you decide to have a kid, so it's your problem. They don't even think one day, maybe, they are in the same room. Say they could get better. But it's about network, what they deal with those.
But I would say just get into the right type of women. I used to be like you. I had, most of my friends were guys, and most of my colleagues were guys, and, I was working in a male-dominated thing, and I loved it. But now, I don't know if it's age or whatever, I find that female connections, business partners connections, are much more generous and much more easily happy to you and willing to support and open up. I mean, for me, it was a turn around. I thought, okay, women are just always just gonna really, but now I find that the biggest support in advancing my, company are actually women. The women who are successful themselves. So you can't go to a frustrated mother who never worked or whatever and expect that she would feel for you. Yeah, well, I mean.
And I guess one of the keys is feeling good about your own choices. Being able to say, yes, I work because it really brings me loads of pleasure, and to be able to say that proudly and then also feel good about that, that is something one has